We actually have Yosenju's, some stun aspect good stuff, and more Vanquish Soul showcasing, OCG can do some very interesting things. Don't beg 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So we are going to be looking at a Nemorelia Yosenju deck. Now, before you're like, what in the world is actually going on here? Well, that's what you add 2 level 10 beast monsters from your deck to your hand. Well, guess who meets the requirement for this? Well, I mean, you can also go for the original Nemoria's monsters here, but the fact that this lets you banish 2 face-down cards from your extra deck face-down to add 2 level 10 beast monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. I love some pendulum scales. This deck is very hilarious in the things that it wants to do, and it's definitely much different than a lot of the other ideas that we've seen. So, we have 2 copies of Dreaming Nemorelia, 1 turtle with 1 lava golem. We have triple copies of Maxi with 2 copies of Dieback. We have 2 copies of Hitat. We have 1 copy of the Coquette, and 1 copy of the Orlur. Someday I'll get these right. We have 1 Sphere Mode with 1 Izana, 1,1, 1,2, and 1,3. And we have 1 copy of Mysock, 1 copy of Oyam. Then we have 2 copies of Sabu. And then we have 1 L and 1 copy of the R Scales. Then we have 2 Lightning Storm, 2 Extravagance, 1 Sweet Dreams Nemoria, 2 copies of the Sleeping Beauty Tower of Nemorelia. And then we have triple copies of the Yosenju Orochi Channeling, 2 copies of Evenly, 1 Impermanence, and 2 copies of the Sword Sting. And now, the extra deck is going to be designed very, very appropriately for this, so keep this in mind. So we have 1 Singularity, 1 Angler Knuckler, 2 copies of Juggernaut Libby, 2 Gustav Mechs, 1 Gangdari, 2 copies of Juggernaut Super Dora, and then, of course, we have 1 Zeus here, wrapping up your Yosenju experience. Next up, we have Stun. Now, this card right here actually is amazing. So apply these effects for the rest of the duel. You cannot activate monster effects in hand. You draw 2 cards instead of 1 during your draw phase, and you get 2 additional normal summons each turn, not just 1. You can banish this card from your graveyard, discard a time-rendering Morganite. Your opponent can activate monster effects when you normal summon a monster. So basically creates a scenario where your opponent can't really respond to your summons via things. Not going to be a lot of things that's really going to matter with that, but you're going to be using Luna to bounce, Kaijuing over your opponent's monsters. This is a pretty straightforward tale of how this works. So we have triple copies of Fairy Tale Luna, triple copies of Inspector Border, 2 copies of the Thunder King Kaiju, with triple copies of Cardemise. We have 2 copies of Paw Desires, triple copies of Pot of Duality with triple copies of Scapegoat. We have triple copies of Time-Rending Morganite, triple copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device, 2 copies of the Draco Utopian Aura, triple copies of Evenly Matched, triple copies of Macro Cosmo, triple copies of Solemn Judgment, triple copies of Solemn Reich, 2 copies of the Storming Mirror Force, and you got the 1 in the Royal Goddess, your 1 Transcode Talker, 2 copies of Mrs. Radiant, 1 Avermax, 1 Lingeribo, 2 copies of Link Spidey, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 IP, 1 G-Golem Crystal Heart, 1 Heat Soul, 1 Boral Sword, 1 Asa, and 1 copy of Access Code Talker here, wrapping up the power of a little bit different metagame approach here. Like I said, I love when we can see anti-meta actually do anti-meta things. It really puts some pressure on the opponent, which is actually kind of nice. Next up here, we have the power of the Vanquish Soul. Now, the big thing that I've been saying about Vanquish Soul is, depending on your elements and things, this card is absolutely amazing. As long as you reveal an Earth monster, this thing becomes unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects. Obviously, the underlining synergy here that you get with Maxi being an Earth is pretty high, actually. Now, this is the first time that I've seen this deck actually incorporating Ghost Reaper. Now that the format has actually kind of shifted, you know, the OCG is experiencing new format before Duelist Nexus here. More and more players are testing out more different ideas and things to try to, you know, keep up and see if they can get the next best thing in. Well, you know, we're definitely getting ready for some shenanigans here. So, we have triple copies of Ash, Blossom, and Joy Spring. We have 1 copy of Doggeron. We have triple copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries with triple copies of Maxi. We also have triple copies of Dr. Madlove. We have triple copies of Heavy Borger, 2 copies of Kaiser Varius, 2 copies of Panthora. We have 1 copy of the Pluton HG. We have triple copies of Soul Rosin. We have 2 copies of Pod Desires, 1 Prosperity with 1 Rhoda, triple copies of Small World, triple copies of Stake Your Soul, 1 copy of Vanquish Soul Continue, 2 copies of the Vanquish Soul Dust Devil, and then we have triple copies of Infinite Permanence. Down in the extra, get the 1 Scarecrow, 2 copies of Rock of Vanquisher, 1 Dahark, 1 Ptolemaeus with 1 Daltros. We have 1 Diamond with 1 Baguski, 1 Nor, 1 copy of Mikhail's, 1 Exciton, 1 Zeus, 1 Pleiades, 1 Dollar, and 1 Junk Speeder. So everything that you could ever want. Then we have the 1 Magna Hut, triple Droll, 2 copies of Space Rock, triple Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Feather Duster, 2 Talents, and triple copies of Solemn Judgment, wrapping up the power of, well, Vanquish Soul. Next up here, we have Manadome. Now, for everything that we have seen and experienced with this deck, still having a generic level 2 tuner monster that allows you to just kind of climb up on into the Chaos Ruler here. Chaos Ruler still is a problem. Don't think that it isn't. I think at this point in time, they've definitely overshadowed a lot of the other option trees here. Also, something interesting, you have Vices of Straw Value, and yes, we are playing Xeno Matoros here. Guard a card is destroyed, especially some of this card from your hand. Okay, that free little extender for a level 6 tuner. It's pretty good. So we have triple copies of Riem Heart, 2 copies of Vices Starfrost with 1 Reinhardt. We have triple copies of Meek, 1 copy of Ash, 1 copy of Lubellion, 1 Magna Hut with 1 Drosworm. We have 1 Baldrake with 1 Sarnier. We have triple copies of Assault Synchron with 2 copies of Ash. We have 2 copies of the Xeno Matoros. Triple copies of Maxi for draw power. We have triple copies of the Calorium. 2 copies of the Epson. We have 1 copy of Rectophobia. We have 1 Manadome Imagining, 1 Arrival, 1 Rhoda, 2 Cold Buy, 1 Crossout, 1 Regained, 1 Beast, and 1 copy of Reframing. Then we have the 1 Bysteel Crazy Guy, 1 Psychic and Punisher, 1 Musaro, 1 Chaos Angel with 1 Chingyang. We have 1 Agreem, 1 Baron with 1 Excel Stardust, 1 Chaos Ruler with 1 Underworld Goddess, 1 News Reporter, 1 Cross Sheep with 1 Lightheart, and 2 copies of Vicious Astrout here, wrapping up the power of Manadome. Next up here is, oh man, I love looking at this deck. Yeah, good old Mathmech Adignister shenanigans, where you can actually abuse the new Link 6 Firewall and just laugh at your opponent. The basic functionality of this deck is pretty straightforward. You just set up big board and proceed to steamroll your opponent. That's what makes this deck incredibly consistent. So we have triple copies of Achichi-Chichi, triple copies of Ash Blossom, 1 copy of Baruru. We have 1 Dammari with 1 Doyon, 1 copy of Gachikuri with 1 Hayari, 1 addition with triple Circular. We have 1 Sigma with triple Maxi, triple copies of Pikari, 1 I Michu, 1 Idol Reborn with triple Book of Eclipse, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, triple Signet Mining with 1 Fighting Spirit, 1 Neostor Island, 1 Equation, 1 Talents, and triple Infinite Permanence. And then down here in the extra, get the 1 Transco Talker, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Crystal Heart with 1 Singularity, 1 Dark Fluid, 1 Firewall, 1 Heat Soul, 1 Dark Templar with 2 Dark Infants, 1 Whiz Kid with 1 Access Code, 1 Allen Bershin, 1 Light Dragon, and 1 Wimpigus. And then you have triple Droll, 1 Ghost Mourner with 1 Update Jammer, 2 Cosmic, 2 Herald, 2 Regeki, triple Dimensional Bear, and 1 copy Red Reboot here, wrapping up the Adignister Turbo. And the last we have for you today, purely shenanigans. Yup, when you're playing the brown now because it facilitates the extra draw power, why not? So we have 1 Ash, 2 copies of Brow, triple copies of Droll, triple copies of Maximus Outputus, triple copies of Purely, or triple copies of Purely Lily. We have 1 Shadal Beast with 1 Crossout Designator, triple copies of My Friend Purely, triple copies of Purely Delicious Memory, triple copies of Happy Memory, triple copies of Pretty Memory with 1 2 3 Sleepy, triple Stray Purely Street, triple Talents, 1 Imperm, and 1 Leap. Then we have the 1 Underworld Goddess, 1 Azalea with 1 Lina, 1 Lingeribo with 1 Sylvan Princess Sprite, 1 Assemble Nightingale, 1 copy of the Fucho, 2 copies of Nor, 2 Plump, 1 Happiness, 1 Beauty, 1 Downer, and 1 Sky Thunder. Then we have 1 Ash, 1 DD Crow, 1 Effect Veiler with 1 Turtle, 2 copies of Space Rock, 2 Called by the Grave, triple Cosmic, 1 Exceed Encore, 2 Imperm, and 1 copy of Red Reboot here, wrapping up your chunk of goodies for this week, honestly. So what do you think about all of the crazy little ideas that are moving through here. Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.